One of these shows was so good, fans literally saved it from cancellation. Another one was created by the same guy behind Peaky Blinders, and still got killed after one season. These are the best period crime dramas ever made. The BBC made this Victorian crime drama, and it ran from 2012 to 2016. Almost nobody watched it because it was airing at the same time as Sherlock and Peaky Blinders, which had all the big stars and all the marketing money. The show takes place in London's East End right after Jack the Ripper vanished. There's a detective, Edmund Reed, who runs the H Division. His daughter died, the Ripper got away, and now he's just supposed to keep showing up to work every day and catch other killers. Each episode was its own case. Reed and his team would hunt down a murderer or a thief, and the show didn't try to stretch mysteries across entire seasons. But all of this is happening in Victorian London, so they're also dealing with cholera outbreaks and workers going on strike and all the other chaos of that time period. The show ran for 5 seasons, and when it ended, The Guardian said it had some of the best writing they'd seen. Really great, emotional finale. Critics loved it, regular viewers loved it, but hardly anyone actually saw it because there were bigger shows with bigger names pulling all the attention. HBO decided to make a show about mob bosses during Prohibition, and they got Steve Buscemi to play the lead. He's Nucky Thompson, a political guy in Atlantic City who's actually running the whole criminal operation on the New Jersey coast. Atlantic City basically ignored Prohibition, so it became this magnet for criminals and corrupt politicians and rich people who wanted to keep drinking. Thompson controlled the bootleg liquor business there, which meant he was constantly dealing with Lucky Luciano and Al Capone and all the other major mob figures from that era. They were all characters in the show. The government was trying to shut Thompson down, rival gangs were trying to take over his territory, politicians were trying to use him for their own purposes. All of that while Prohibition made alcohol the most profitable illegal product in the country. The show got nominated for 57 Emmys over its run, won 20 of them. In 2017, the BBC made a 3-part series about the Gunpowder plot, the attempt to blow up King James back in the 1600s. Kit Harington from Game of Thrones played Robert Catesby, the guy who actually planned the whole thing. Guy Fawkes gets all the attention now, but Catesby was the one organizing it. And Harington's actually related to Catesby in real life, which is kind of wild. King James was going after Catholics at the time. Catesby wanted to stop it by destroying Parliament and starting this massive revolt across the city. The whole plan involved sneaking barrels of gunpowder into the House of Lords without anyone noticing. The show played it like a heist movie, except with swords and castles instead of guns and getaway cars. Same kind of tension, though, where you're watching this plan that could fall apart any second. It's only 3 episodes, but they're really intense. Harington plays Catesby as someone who genuinely believes he's saving his people. Even though everyone watching already knows how this story ends, the show doesn't hold back on showing how brutal and violent the 1600s actually were. The Alienist is set in 1890s New York. Daniel Bruhl plays a guy named Laszlo Chrysler, and he works with the police hunting serial killers. Dakota Fanning and Luke Evans are in it too. The show's based on mystery novels by Caleb Carr. Back then, they called people like Laszlo alienists instead of criminal psychologists. The idea was that violent criminals were alienated from normal society, so you needed someone who understood that mindset to actually catch them. He would help the NYPD on cases where regular detective work wasn't going anywhere. Teddy Roosevelt's in the show. This is years before he became president, when he was just the police commissioner in New York. He ends up working with Laszlo on these investigations. The show spent a lot of money recreating what 1890s New York actually looked like. The filthy streets, the massive gap between rich and poor, all of it. The murder investigations are the main story, but there's also all this stuff about police corruption and how power worked in a city that was about to go through huge technological and social changes. There's really high production quality, solid writing. It's just a great period drama all around. Tom Hardy came off playing Alfie Solomon in Peaky Blinders and apparently decided he wanted to make his own period crime show. So in 2017, he teamed up with Stephen Knight, the guy who created Peaky Blinders, and they made Taboo. Hardy didn't just star in it. He was co-creator and executive producer. He helped build the whole thing from the ground up, and the show he made was weird and dark. It's set in early 19th century London. Hardy plays James Delaney, who comes back to England after years in Africa and inherits his father's shipping business. Sounds straightforward until the East India Company decides they want his father's land, and they'll do whatever it takes to get it. But there's another layer to this. Delaney reconnects with his half-sister when he gets back, and he's in love with her. That's the taboo part, not just the company corruption stuff, but this forbidden relationship that runs through the whole series. The show only ran for one season, 8 episodes. It's not action-packed the way you'd expect from Tom Hardy. It's slow and deliberately paced. Every scene feels like it's building to something. And of course, Hardy's performance as Delaney is what people remember. He created this character who's haunted and dangerous and damaged, and the whole show revolves around him trying to navigate this world that wants to destroy him. Netflix tried something interesting with Sherlock Holmes in 2021. They made a show called The Irregulars, and the premise was this. What if the street kids who helped Sherlock solve cases in the original stories were actually the ones doing all the work? The show came from Greg Brenman, who produced Peaky Blinders, so there was some pedigree there. It followed a group of misfits living on the streets of London who get hired by John Watson to solve cases. Sherlock Holmes is mostly missing. He's barely in the show. Instead, these kids are running around the back alleys chasing down murderers and figuring out mysteries while Sherlock gets all the credit. Fair warning though, the show went full supernatural. I'm not talking regular murder mysteries. There are chemical clones, shape-shifting monsters, all kinds of science fiction elements mixed in. The cases they're solving aren't just crimes, they're these bizarre supernatural plots happening in Victorian London. And the show got violent. Like really violent. It pushed the boundaries of what you'd expect from a period drama. Plenty of gore alongside the mystery and intrigue. The whole thing was building toward revealing what happened to Sherlock and why these kids were doing his job. It had this underlying story about how the Irregulars were the real heroes all along, while some famous detective took the glory. But Netflix canceled it after one season, so we never got to find out. 2017 had this show called Damnation set during the Great Depression in a small Iowa town called Holden. The story follows two brothers on opposite sides of a labor movement, and neither of them is what they appear to be. Seth Davenport is a religious leader pushing local farmers to strike against the town's corrupt sheriff and the system propping him up. His brother Creeley Turner is a Pinkerton agent, basically a hired gun for wealthy people, sent to Holden to break up the strike. There's a tycoon who stands to lose everything if the farmers succeed, so he's paying Turner to shut it down by any means necessary. The twist is that both brothers are frauds. Seth isn't actually a preacher. He's an ex-con posing as one to rally the farmers, and Creeley has his own secrets he's hiding. The whole show is built on these two brothers lying about who they are while fighting each other over this labor strike. A lot of the historical backdrop is based on real events from that era. The labor movements, the Pinkerton agents breaking strikes, the corruption, all of that actually happened during the Depression. The brothers themselves are fictional, but the world they're living in is grounded in reality. The show got praised as one of the best Western crime dramas out there. It's violent and twisted, and the characters are compelling in that way where you're not always rooting for them, but you can't stop watching. AMC did something really smart in 2015. They made a show that was part mafia epic, part true crime documentary, and somehow managed to pull off both at the same time. The Making of the Mob mixed interviews with historians and experts with these incredibly well-done dramatic recreations. The recreations look so good you'd think they pulled footage from some high-budget HBO series. While experts talk about the history and give context, you're watching actors play out the rise and fall of the biggest crime bosses of the 20th century. 2 seasons ran between 2015 and 2016. First season covered New York, second season moved to Chicago, and focused on Al Capone's empire. You get to see Capone's rise to power as the head of the Chicago Mafia and watch it all come crashing down. The actors playing these roles aren't famous names, but the quality of the dramatic scenes rivals any big-budget crime series. And then you've got the documentary side providing all this historical context that makes the story even more fascinating. It's one of those rare cases where a hybrid format actually works. Most shows that try to do two things at once end up doing both badly, but The Making of the Mob nailed it. In 1984, ITV in Britain decides to adapt Sherlock Holmes stories. This has been done a million times before. Holmes is probably the most adapted character in fiction, but they cast Jeremy Brett in the lead role, and something clicked. Brett didn't just play Sherlock Holmes, he became the definitive version of the character. The series ran for 10 years and adapted 42 of the original 60 Holmes stories that Arthur Conan Doyle wrote, and they stayed incredibly faithful to the source material. No modern twists, no reimagining the character, just straight adaptations of the actual stories. They did all the famous ones. Hound of the Baskervilles, the Red-Headed League, the cases everyone knows. But they also adapted the lesser-known stories, the ones casual fans had never heard of. To this day, if you ask fans of the original books which screen version they recommend, they point to Brett's series. It's been 40 years and nothing's topped it. Not Cumberbatch's modern version on BBC, not Robert Downey Jr.'s action movies, not any of the dozens of other attempts. Jeremy Brett's Holmes is still the one people say got it right. Fast forward to 2012. BBC America wants to make their own period crime drama. They set it in 1860s New York, right in the middle of the Civil War in this area called the 5 Points. If you've seen Gangs of New York, you know the 5 Points. It was this nightmare of crime and poverty and violence. Copper picks up about 10 years after that movie ends, with the same gang still running the streets. The main character is an Irish cop named Kevin Corcoran, and he's trying to bring some kind of order to complete chaos. But he's also dealing with his own stuff. His wife is missing, his daughter died while he was off fighting for the Union Army, and he has no idea what happened to either of them. The show was basically Law and Order set in the 1860s, except way grimmer and with none of the structure or discipline of modern police work. Corcoran's out there tracking down murderers in the filth and grime of Civil War-era New York, and it doesn't pull any punches about how brutal that time was. It only ran for 2 seasons, but if you liked how uncompromising Peaky Blinders was about crime in the 1920s, Copper does the same thing 50 years earlier. Then in 2018, someone had the idea to give John Malkovich a shot at Hercule Poirot. This is interesting timing because Kenneth Branagh had just done Murder on the Orient Express in theaters and was about to do Death on the Nile, so Poirot was having this big moment again. The ABC Murders is a 3-part series based on the Agatha Christie novel where Poirot's hunting a serial killer who's sending him letters predicting where he'll strike next. Rupert Grint from Harry Potter plays Inspector Crome, and together they're trying to stop this guy before he kills again. This version is way gloomier than most Christie adaptations. Usually Poirot stories have this lighter touch, even when people are getting murdered. But this series took the material and made it darker, moodier, more psychological. They changed some stuff from the book, which made the Christie purists unhappy, but critics really liked it. Malkovich brought something genuinely unsettling to Poirot. He's not the charming detective you're used to seeing. He's more haunted, more troubled. If you're a die-hard fan of the original novels, you might prefer Branagh's more traditional take. But if you don't know the source material that well and you just want a good crime thriller set in the past, this version hits differently than any other Poirot adaptation.